You are now listening to the Curtis King Podcast. What's going on with you, and welcome to the Curtis King Podcast. This is a podcast specifically for music producers, recording artists, as well as creatives and thinkers alike. I'd like to say thank you and welcome to a brand new season of the Curtis King Podcast, brought to you by our good friends over at DistroKid. First things first, we must address the elephant in the room, the fact that we brought it back here to the main YouTube channel. Shout out to those of you that made a vote here on my community tab on YouTube. You decided that you wanted the channel or the podcast itself to be back on the main channel, and so that's exactly what we did. But that being said, I want to start this podcast off with a quote from this book right here called This is Marketing by the marketing genius, the GOAT, Seth Godin. There's a chapter in which he encourages marketers or business owners or anybody that's involved in a marketing process to focus on the few. In fact, the subsection that he talks about, this next thing I'm going to read, is called Forcing a Focus. He says, the relentless pursuit of mass will make you boring because mass means average. It means the center of the curve. It requires you to offend no one and satisfy everyone. It will lead to compromises and generalizations. Begin instead with the smallest valuable market. What's the minimum number of people you would need to influence to make it worth the effort? Then he goes on to talk about why it's easier to walk away from the allure and temptation of trying to reach everyone, or in other words, go viral. Everything gets easier when you walk away from the hubris of everyone. Your work is not for everyone. It's only for those who signed up for the journey. Specific is a kind of bravery. So he's basically saying that those of us that are trying to reach a broad audience or scale what we're doing, being specific and scaling down and trying to pinpoint exactly who needs the message is a kind of bravery. Specific means accountable. It either worked or it didn't work. It matched or it didn't. It spread or it didn't. Are you hiding behind everyone or anyone? You'll never be able to serve everyone, which is comforting, since you're less likely to be disappointed when it doesn't happen. Let me rewind you back to where I was at end of 2021. I was looking at my channel and feeling a bit stuck. I was feeling like I was sitting at this 230 subscriber threshold for a long time. I was making the fatal mistake of looking at my peers and seeing the numbers that they were doing and seeing, okay, do I need to pivot? Am I a dinosaur in the YouTube game? Am I being left behind? Is there things that need to change drastically? Is there things that need to be upgraded so that I can find my voice in the new direction of where content is going? Tutorials are not what they used to be, especially specifically talking in the music producer community. Vlogs in general, not even just for producers, vlogs in general are not what they used to be. Talking head videos are not what they used to be. Even the idea of long form content is not what it used to be. With the rise of platforms like TikTok, IG Reels, it has become a game where if you do not have a voice in short form, you got a question of whether or not you have a voice at all. And if you have a pipeline that can lead from these folks who are engaged in small content to a product, if you're not in the game, how can you play the game? And that's where I was at end of the year. Every year, I do a hiatus in which I do a lot of soul searching, a lot of reflection. And the reflection brought to me a few different things. One being that observation I made about my peers and where they were at and where things were going just in the industry at large. The second observation had to do with my business. I ran into a huge obstacle, just like every business goes through. A huge obstacle that could have very well leveled my business. I have been working my way through it. I have been taking it one product at a time, one step at a time, trying to basically get rid of things that don't need to be on my plate and hyper focusing on the things that, one, lead to the bottom line, but also to the things that I'm most passionate about, that I can get up every single day, that are not liabilities for me physically and mentally, because I do so much. And in the process of that, that also meant getting rid of some folks that were staff and folks that were working with me. And so a lot of responsibilities fell back on me. And when that happens, I don't give myself much choice to get my ass up and figure out where to go next. For me, I'm the type of individual where I say, give me a few minutes. Just give me a few minutes. Give me a few, and then I'm going to get right back to it. And for me, those few minutes lasted a few months, because what I recognized, or what I thought I recognized, was that beyond there being issues with my business and the structure of it, beyond there being business with my issues with my YouTube channel that I wanted to improve upon so that I could scale and reach more people, I felt like there were issues with my character, in that I tend to talk a lot. I tend to rant. I tend to have these free streams of consciousness, these conversations that come out in the form of podcasts and YouTube videos that, for the sake of being authentic, they're valuable. For the sake of being transparent, they're valuable. But for the sake of retention and the things that actually matter on YouTube, they can be counterproductive, I should say, to what you're trying to achieve. And so I told myself, I said, okay, well, let's say less. Let's make the videos shorter time. And let's move forward with creating a more cinematic experience and making it something that you really want to watch. I think that we achieved that. And although it did not scale as soon as I anticipated it would, it definitely led to my audience being reinvigorated and re-energized and being put on notice that, hey, things are a little bit different with Curtis. Maybe it's not the same old ranting. But as of recent, especially after reading that passage that I shared with you, I started really thinking about, yes, you can make a change in these things that are in your character. But in the same way that when you get into a relationship with someone and you fall in love with the things that you view as positive, it makes you hyper focus on the things that are not so positive, the things that you don't like, the character flaws that really start to expand. I did the same thing with myself in that I recognized the things that I did not like, I was putting a whole lot of focus on. But in the same way as relationships, when you hyper focus on the negative, it makes the positive look so small, and then your viewpoint of it looks so bleak. And so I put the brakes on all these changes that I had been making and really had a few conversations with myself about, okay, so you've done this now, this new change for 8 to 9 months. How do you feel? Who are you reaching? Who would you like to reach, and why would you like to reach them? And then at the same time, I had to be reminded about my value. Shout out my brother Dorian, Group 82. We have been doing this thing where we're sending we don't ever talk on the phone, but we send voice notes back and forth. And it took a few of those voice notes for me to be reminded who I am and my ultimate value to what I am doing. And when I started a YouTube channel, it was never about getting a million subscribers. It was never about a gajillion views. It was about providing value to an audience that I felt like was underserved, an audience that I felt like I could provide information that was very unique to my experience, very specific to my experience, that could help so many. But the folks that I looked at as OGs, or the folks that were teaching me, weren't in a position to share it, right? That was an ultimate no-no at that time. You don't share this information. But I wanted to help people. And as I launched on this journey and I created almost 2,000 videos up until now, you do learn a lot about yourself, and you do see the things that you like, but you also understand that there is no positive without the negative, right? I don't become the speaker that I am. I don't become the big brother figure or the friend or the encourager, the motivator that I become without going through those rants. They're all important. Same way in a relationship. You can love the positive things about them, but if you do not allow the other side, the duality in them to exist, you won't have the other side, or it won't be as authentic and genuine as what you perceive. Without that, we are whole human beings, not one-sided human beings. I have been really on a journey as of recent to tap back into the things that have connected me to the people that mean the most to me on these platforms. New people are great, and I'm grateful if you've come to my content and it took cinematic rage beat videos and I still want to do this stuff. Don't get it twisted. I'm grateful for you coming here. But there's also part of me that's recognizing that you are what you are, and you don't force that change overnight. It is a part of my DNA. It's a part of the reason why so many of you gravitate to my content. It's why a very specific type of you gravitate to this. And it's another reason why this podcast is back on its platform, because I know that sometimes this is a little bit too unfocused for some ears, but it's not for them. I know that sometimes it can come off as like, oh my God, what are you ranting about now? It's not for them. And I am not here to be changed or shifted by any force outside of God and outside of what my brain deciphers is the right direction to go in. My heart deciphers, and whatever influences that. So that means family, that means friends that influence that. That being said, I want to take a quick commercial break, and I want to come back and I want to talk about this new direction that I'm pivoting in, as well as some other stuff that we'll talk about towards the end of this. But shout out to our sponsor once again. This podcast, the Curtis King Podcast, is powered by the good folks over at DistroKid. See you in a second. Music producers, something I talk about pretty frequently is the necessity of having multiple streams of revenue as an independent music producer. Not only for when you're actually producing, but what about those days after you stop producing? You got to make sure that you have streams of revenue that are going to live on even further than your current career. That being said, one stream of revenue that I think gets often overlooked is music distribution, aka streaming, getting your music on Apple Music, getting your music on Spotify, etc., etc. Now, the number one spot that I go to make sure that I distribute my music properly and ensure that I get my music to every store possible is DistroKid at distrokid.com. I know you've heard me speak about it multiple times on my YouTube channel, but I gotta tell you, there's a reason why it's the number one that I go to. For $19.99 per year, I can upload an unlimited amount of music throughout the year. As producers, you know we make an abnormal amount of music in comparison to songs that get created, so it's important that you use this as a consistent stream of income. If you'd like to sign up to DistroKid today and get your music to every major distributor, go to distrokid.com/VIP/Curtis King to get 7% off. All right. Thank you once again to the good folks at DistroKid. So, switching gears, I have been calling my community, my very intimate community, DIYers. And obviously, it's an extension of my new album, DIY 2, which it's so crazy because I feel like this podcast has so many things it could be about, because we haven't even talked about the process of how the DIY 2 album became number one on the hip hop iTunes chart, something I am supremely grateful for, something that I will do a deep dive into very soon, since there's a lot of inquiring minds based upon some new content that has come out, uninformed content. I would love to share with you exactly how we did it, because it was a group effort, and it can only be a group effort. That being said, I have never been this excited about being independent as an artist or producer. I have never been this excited about being a DIYer than I have now. Seeing how the messages that I put out there connect to so many people who do so many things themselves, they wear so many hats, that already got me hyped. Then I got an opportunity to do some mentorship in Fort Collins, Colorado, at a mentorship group that was created by my brother Mers. Mers invited me out there to basically be the producer that would work with 12 artists, I believe it was, from around the Fort Collins area that signed up and were looking to get a little bit of feedback on their music while they're in the creative process, while they're in the studio. It is hosted at a building called the Music District, or a company called the Music District, who has a facility. And I tell you, this facility looks so much how I envisioned the university that I want to do, right? You know, that's one of my major plans, is to create a physical university for rappers and music producers. It looks so much like that. I'm looking around and I'm seeing room to room to room. There's studios, there's state-of-the-art, MIDI keyboards, there's Focusrites with the multi inputs, there's all these different, monitors and whatnot. It was like visually seeing what I envisioned the university to be. And having the opportunity to, first of all, see that, and then second of all, be in a studio with artists again. I haven't been in a studio with artists again, or I haven't been in a studio with artists in quite some years. Outside of the artists that I work with on a one-to-one basis, those are usually different types of sessions. I don't think I've ever been in a session where every single room that I walked in, it's multiple artists working on songs, and every time I come in, they're asking for feedback. Is there a different way that you would approach this? What do you think about this? I listen to it and I say, what if we tried this? Because when I made the beat, I intended for an artist to do this. And then they do it right there on the spot. Them being so open to it also opened me up to wanting to do something in person with the community, much of the community that's watching here, and to do it in multiple places. But it's something that got me so excited because it was like giving someone advice because it's worked in theory for you doesn't always equal out to the results showing exactly right there in real time. This time they did. And it wasn't just for 1 or 2 artists, it was for 12 artists. And when they saw, even if they didn't understand what I was suggesting to them, when they saw it work in real time, it's one of those things that was like, what else you got? It made me understand how much I have been giving to you guys over the last X amount of years and how much of it is ingested into my natural DNA. Like when it comes to my creative DNA, how much is embedded in that, and seeing it in real time, seeing the results, seeing the shift in artists, or at least in those particular verses and songs after you've given them advice, it lit me up. It got me more excited about mentorship than I have been in quite some time. And in seeing that, once again, it drove home this DIY mentality, this DIYers group that I want to continue to pour into, specifically my Patreon. If you didn't know, I started up a new Patreon, patreon.com/Curtis King. And every single Sunday, I literally just pour into this group as much information relevant to what they're asking, relevant to what they're struggling with, relevant to what they're even doing well with, and trying to find a way to level up on that. That is what I'm doing every single week, and it's something I genuinely enjoy. I was out there, and it was an amazing trip. The third day, I started feeling nauseous because of that altitude. I got altitude sickness. I came home. Not to give up too much information, but I threw up like crazy. And then I laid down, and I'm still feeling, even now, a few days removed, I'm still feeling a little bit out of balance, but I do it all over again because of how much energy it gave me, how much it just got me excited about returning back to my original goal when I made this YouTube channel. The original goal when I made this YouTube channel was never to find other YouTubers to collaborate with. Just gonna keep it a stack. It never was, I'm going to collaborate and elevate my way up to try to get to places. Other YouTubers weren't even inside my brain when I started first making content. Not because of it was an arrogant thing, not because I felt like I was better than anybody, but I felt like if you don't figure out how to get on your own shit, nobody's gonna give a damn anyways. So why are you focused on them, right? Maybe it would have helped to focus a little bit on them to kind of understand the lay of the land, the native language of the platform. But outside of that, I felt like this helped me find my own unique voice. So although there may be some pros and cons to that, I'm really leaning and thugging with these pros. I love the fact that going my own route gave me the opportunity to really see what works and what doesn't work. I think sometimes we get so much information from other people, and because it has worked for them and because they are successful, we put it on this pedestal and we don't recognize that there are a lot of variables that we are going to experience en route to where we want to go. They can't predict because they've never walked this journey. They've walked their journey. And although they can give us things and provide us things that can help us avoid a few obstacles, they will never know what it's like to be you. As we fast forward from my beginning of my YouTube to now, my current day YouTube, and I just take a look at the lay of the land and I look at the ridiculous shit that is out here, the energy that is pushed in my direction, the pure childishness that is pushed in my direction, I can no longer give energy to it. I can no longer give you content for it. I'm back and I'm focused, and I know exactly what my voice and my place is in this space. We are wasting valuable time, and there are people out here who are genuinely hurting. There are people out here who are in search of information, and imagine me clouding up that time that I have to give you value, not just time on this platform, time on this earth. Imagine me clouding up that time with bitterness, with beef, with gripes, with people who are not relevant to what we're doing. I have a job to do. That is to serve you. That is to create a ecosystem that is comfortable for you to come back to, be motivated by, encouraged by, informed by. And I needed to get back to that. And just the way that God works sometimes you need to get pulled off your path in order to see your path. Sometimes you got to get pulled up into the sky so that you stop walking forward and you look at how far you've come when you look back, and you look down to see how far you're off of your path. A lot of things have happened over the last few weeks that have really reminded me why I came to do what I do. And it may not be for everyone. It just may not be for a great amount of people, but it's for a great group of people, an amazing group of individuals. And I am okay. Not only am I okay with that, I am encouraged and I am excited about pouring into you. It's wild how when you grow up so close to the industry as an artist or a producer, how because everybody is so hyper focused on what the industry is doing and who's popular, it makes it seem like the game is forever in one direction, and that the top of the game is the Jay-Z's, the Lil Babies, the Waynes, and whoever is in that place. Many of us only are pitched that and seen that. And if anything doesn't pop off there, there's a general consensus that not much is going on in the industry at large. Yet there are so many stories in between there and in between the producer or rapper who just started yesterday. So many interesting stories. So many valuable stories, so many levels of success that may not be as sexy as the guy with all the placements, may not be as sexy as the guy with the #1 Billboard charts. But there are so many stories, and myself included. This is why we get so excited when we talk about the #1 hip hop album on iTunes. Fake it? We don't have to fake that. You see the support. And when the support is within a strong community, it's nothing to fake. We have it. And I cannot wait for DistroKid to give me my numbers so that I can break it down for you and you can understand exactly what it is. That's the only reason people bring these things up. They want to know how. That's good. That's exactly why my channel was created, is to break down and demystify the how. So thank you for the opportunity to do that. We're just getting started. We got so much more value to give. And I can't promise you that it won't be ranty. I can't promise you that it won't be long-winded. I can't promise you that it'll be the highest of retention all the time. What I can promise you is that it's going to be me. And whoever that is for is whoever it was intended for. I intend to get back to the work at hand and along the way show you everything that I am doing, as transparent as I was when I first picked up this iPhone 6 and started making content for you. So thank you for supporting this channel, and thank you for supporting this podcast. I hope you're excited to get it back because I'm excited to provide it to you. Nothing but love to DistroKid for powering this podcast, sponsoring this podcast. And make sure you definitely go take advantage of that link down in the description if you want to sign up today for DistroKid. Once again, this is Curtis King of the Curtis King Podcast. Come join us on Patreon at patreon.com/Curtis King. Have a good one.